Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back for the Sunday recap. This is the final Sunday recap for 2019. So instead of looking back at my last week in games, we'll take a look at my last year in games and talk a bit about the games that I've played the most during the last year. And of course we're gonna start with EVE Online, which is my main game, my number one game. I still think that it is the greatest game in the world, the true sandbox, one of the only ones out there, and one in a sci-fi setting which I absolutely love. Now the footage you're seeing is only from last week because I don't want to go back through all of my EVE talks or Sunday recaps I should say, to look for some extra juicy footage or anything like that. But last year was in one sense pretty uneventful because when we started the year in Detail, and I'm still in Detail, all the services are up and running there. Not much has changed, but it's basically my way of trying to help newer players out because I make all facilities available to the public for no taxes or next to no taxes, and you know, it's being fueled by donations from the players, and that way I hope that lots of people can find their way to a pretty stable setting to explore the game. And I think that Detail is a pretty awesome location for that, right next to Lowsec, next to Nullsec, decent exploration as well. The only thing that doesn't really work there is missioning, but I personally have never been a great fan of missioning, so for me it is absolutely the perfect setting. The whole year has been dominated by the Triglavian invasions, of course. The new ships are amazing, slightly overpowered, but now that I have the full Mimesis implant set, which I built myself, that's what's so fun or in sandbox games, is that you can set your own goals and work towards those. So now that I have that full implant set, I'm actually going to look into getting back for some Triglavian ship action as well. They're slightly overpowered, but that is of course pretty much always the case when something is introduced. You want it to be popular, so you make it slightly too good. Expect a nerf bat to hit them at some point in the future, but not too soon, I don't think. I personally still believe that the plans are for the Triglavians to become the 5th race in the game. I feel like CCP has a whole story ready. I feel like with the Invasion Chapter 2 you get a little bit of a feeling there that, you know, they're starting to do stuff in cave space on a pretty much large scale, and CCP Burger actually dropped that, I think it was at EVE London. How else are the Triglavians going to carve out a part of space in New Eden? So I think we're set for more Triglavian action, for a continuation of the story, and I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. You know, FanFest next year is, I think, gonna be a point of a lot of interest. 2020 should be a pretty major FanFest. Hopefully we'll get a nice trailer, a nice roadmap, and we'll know exactly what CCP is planning with EVE Online. So let's start with the World of Warcraft. That's the game that I was still playing next to EVE Online at the start of 2019, and while my interest in the game was already starting to dwindle, I must say that I enjoyed the Battle for Azeroth, playing it on my Warlock. That's probably my favorite class at this point. Ranged caster, so you feel a little bit safer. Dot everything up, so it's really pretty straightforward. Lots of instant casts as well. And then with the pets, you've got the right utilities, all the tools you need for PvP, for PvE. A super solo friendly class. I did a couple of LFR raids there as well. Nothing too special though, as well, while playing EVE Online, a true sandbox where everything you do has value. In the World of Warcraft, of course, you have these constant resets, which is now not just limited to new expansions, but also to new patches that basically resets all the gear. You gotta get on that treadmill again and again, and it's something I just couldn't keep going for the rest of 2019. I do look forward to the next expansion, Shadowlands. I'm considering to play another class for that one. I think there's like a 99% chance that I will jump in on that, but for now the World of Warcraft retail is a distant memory from 2019, where I was still playing that Warlock mostly in those battlegrounds. Next up is Path of Exile, a game that I've been playing throughout the entire year. It's got this awesome 3-monthly release of new leagues so that you can start fresh with everyone else on the game, and it's really an amazing experience. In the first part of the year, I was mostly playing with totem characters, something that's pretty easy and straightforward, so mostly Arc Totem Hero Pawns I felt were very strong to get me through all the acts and potentially in some of the maps. But after that, with one of the leagues, there was a massive rework of all the minions, and that's when the Necromancer, which really became my favorite class to play in Path of Exile. And I absolutely love the game. Free to play, super accessible, and you can go as hardcore as you want in it. The depth of it at this point is absolutely amazing. On top of that, there's more leagues that are coming out and planned, of course, and a Path of Exile 2, which will actually be incorporated into the base game of Path of Exile. If you want to know more about all of that, definitely take a look or do a search for ExileCon. It looks really amazing, and it's definitely one of the games that I'm planning to keep playing in 2020 for every single league that comes out. And you know, we'll see how much more fun I can get out of it, but it has been amazing already, and a journey that I'm definitely trying to follow. After that, I want to talk a little bit about Hearthstone, and I have played that on and off throughout the year, mostly looking at those solo adventures. That is definitely the mode that I enjoy in Hearthstone. Everything else falls to the wayside. Arena, one-on-one matches, things like that are not really my cup of tea, but the solo adventures, I have really enjoyed them. It's basically a PvE part of Hearthstone where you start with a very small deck and you then have to defeat, I think it's like 8 bosses or something like that, and every time you win against a boss you get options to build your deck, to add treasures, add special powers, and you can end up with some crazy overpowered combinations. When it all falls into place, a solo adventure is absolutely an amazing experience where you really feel like, oh man, the full potential of some of the abilities that I can give myself are just completely crazy. Build up incredibly strong minions, or just have, you know, crazy combinations. That's a lot of fun to me, and so it's something that I might jump back into Hearthstone for if they come out with some new adventures, solo adventures to enjoy there. Next up, we have Total War Warhammer 2, also an on and off game, but I'm looking at my Steam stats and it's 250 hours played. Not bad, I think, and also a game that I bought most of the DLC for, because those add new races and factions that do give you a lot of replayability. They all have unique abilities, and honestly, a grand strategy game like Total War is absolutely addictive to play in. So it's one of those recommended games for me if you like strategy and if you like the Warhammer universe. I personally prefer the 40k universe, but yeah, this was a lot of fun playing with the elves that felt overpowered from the start with their long range weapons. Then you get the Skaven, that was pretty fun. The Slan, the cold-blooded dinosaurs, really cool to play with. And some of the latest DLC that I bought, like the Tomb Kings and the Vampire Coast, all of that, you know, more Total War with a lot of flavor, and just playing through one campaign is like a lot of time spent. On top of that, I also bought, I think it was like Total War Warhammer 1, which then gave me access to completely new campaigns, many other races, the dwarves, the empire, the vampires. Really, there's an incredible amount of content in Total War and Total War Warhammer 2, and I've enjoyed every single minute of those 250 hours. Another game I have to cover, and that has been one of the on and off experiences of 2019, is Dota Underlord. It was my first encounter with like an auto chess type of game where you build up an army, put them on the deck, and then they have to fight up to 7 different opponents in a single game. Always PvP as far as I can tell. I actually was surprised at how relaxed this is, because you don't have to actually do that much yourself. You're basically just looking for the strongest combinations that you can find amongst all the options that are given to you, but you don't have to worry about Twitch gameplay or anything like that. It's just pure strategy, sit back, relax, and then watch the game unfold. Try to find the strongest combinations and then keep going for that. It does suffer a little bit from stale meta in my opinion, where some combinations are just so clearly stronger than all the others that they get picked the most, and that, you know, if you're just a little bit lucky, it carries you through so much of those games that it feels a little bit unfair. It's something that they need to work on, but also one of the latest updates gives the knockout mode that's like really fast 15-minute games that have a much faster pace than the normal games that last up to 50 minutes. So yeah, they're working hard there at Valve on Dota Underlord, and I think it was actually a fun experience so far. I might actually jump back into that one for 2020 for sure. Next up, we have some one-off games, I would say, and the first one I want to cover is Foundation, like a small strategy city building game, but a very nice game, very comparable to Banished, super relaxed, nothing with combat or anything like that. You're just building up and managing a town, giving your citizens instructions as to build stuff here, build stuff there, try to manage an economy, try to keep them growing, and then just, you know, in a much more sandboxy map, and with, in my opinion, nicer graphics than Banished. Foundation was a lot of fun to play through for like a couple of weeks. I'm not even sure how much time I spent playing the game, but it was a decent amount. I actually had to do a couple of starts just to get to grips with all of the economic aspects and how to unlock everything, but once I figured that out, I was able to build some pretty nice large towns as well. One drawback is that at the time of me playing, it was definitely still in development. There were stuff that was not in the game just yet, economic loops and cycles that were not complete, so I ran into those eventually, but I did spend a good amount of time in Foundation, and it was actually really fun to play and to build a game like that. Very comparable to Banished, a little bit better in the graphics and in the sandboxy feel. I think you've got plenty more options to put stuff in different directions, scaled, looking differently, but less polished, less finished than Banished, unfortunately. After that, we have X4 Foundations. That was my one-off for the summer, pretty much. I did spend around 90 hours playing that game, and it's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of potential, but it basically suffers a little bit from the same thing as Foundation. It doesn't feel like it's actually really completed just yet. There's definitely some limitations and problems with the in-game economy there that you run into later game. On the other hand, yeah, it's also a space game, a sci-fi game, and I get to play that with my joystick, which is a lot of fun, of course, when you do get into combat situations, going after pirates, going after Xenon with a slightly bigger, more powerful ship than them. You do feel like you're hunting in a real way, in a real sense, in X4. Of course, it's more than that. It's actually also a true sandbox game in the sense that you can trade, you can build, you can explore, you can fight, you can become a pirate, you can go to war against other factions. There is an almost endless potential of stuff to do, and I enjoy making up a big passive trade empire with lots of traders that fly around everywhere, have some station that produce stuff, give me passive income, and then start to build up a nice fleet that follows me around as I then start to explore the universe. That's basically what I did in X4. It's a game that I'll probably pick back up in 2020 as well, because Egosoft is planning an expansion, Split Families, that should like really increase the size of the universe, which I think is only going to help the economic problems as well. Bring in one of my favorite races, the Split. Actually, I always remember Split now bid you death, so I'm looking forward to that. And X4 has been a pretty cool game, although I haven't played that much of it. I can see the potential there, and I hope that it will be realized in 2020. After that X4 binge, we come to a late summer with World of Warcraft Classic. I did jump back into that one with a priest on Horde side, and I actually went pretty hardcore for a couple of weeks, trying to level up my character, trying to join the guild that I joined together with Bobo Chic, and try to, you know, run dungeons. And for a while I was able to basically keep up with the curve decently well, but I have to be honest, this is one of the games where I completely burned out on playing it, because I was just being too intense, too focused, and it was no longer a relaxing experience. That's always what I'm looking for in games, and man, Classic, it's definitely a pretty grindy experience. It was just too grindy for me to keep up, especially having to keep that up and then trying to keep playing EVE Online, trying to keep making content for the channel. It was just almost impossible for me to combine that. And a couple of weeks in, I think my priest's like level 35 or something like that, I basically dropped off and I haven't looked back since. For the World of Warcraft, I've said it in the first part for the retail, I actually now look forward towards the new expansion, and I think that that's gonna be my next adventure there. It's really impressive though to see Classic on Twitch, how it dominated. It was a super hype, but for me it was definitely a flash in the pan. So looking for some relaxation after that WoW Classic binge and burnout, well, it was exactly the right time in fall for Destiny 2. It became free to play, it came to Steam, and so I gave that a fresh start. I actually played Destiny 2, I think a little bit after launch already, bought it at like a discount and enjoyed that first storyline. I think it was called like the Red Menace or something like that. So it was pretty fun to jump back in there into something that I was already slightly familiar with a lot more content, a lot more polish as well. And right on a reset time as well, where everyone would like basically have it their chance to migrate. And yeah, I just tried a fresh start in Destiny 2. I basically did a free-to-play experience there. I was looking to relax a little bit more, and it definitely managed to do that. It unfortunately didn't really convince me to like pony up extra money for the expansion or anything like that. Just playing through a couple of the stories, like the Red Menace again, then also the Curse of Osiris. That was, yeah, okay, but am I hungry for even more Destiny 2, for even more, well, honestly, of the same? That was not the case anymore. But it was definitely a nice free-to-play snack in between all of the other games there, and it's also great to see that it's just on Steam. Download it, give it a go, and then you can support it depending on how much more time you want to spend in there. Getting my character towards that like 200 light level, which was like a soft cap for the free-to-play part there, did not feel too easy, not too grindy, but not too fast either. It was just right, honestly. So really nice experience in Destiny 2. And to end this look back at 2019, I have to talk about Darkest Dungeon. It's a game that I was introduced to by Quinn69. I watched him play it on the stream. It looked like a lot of fun, so I put it on my wish list and I waited for the right discount on Steam, bought the game with all the DLC, and I'm actually still running my playthrough. The series is also still going, but it's been a lot of fun so far. It's definitely a game that is very addictive. That's also pretty relaxed in the sense that you don't need twitch reflex or anything like that. It's basically a management game where you have to try to understand the odds and the risk and then take the gamble. You're rolling the dice every single time. Your heroes will have heart attacks, go crazy. Sometimes they'll overcome obstacles, sometimes they won't, and it just keeps throwing problems at you for you to solve. It's really very fun, very addictive in my opinion, and absolutely comes highly recommended. With this warning, which it gives itself, the game when you first start it up will say that it will demand a lot of you if you want to get through the whole thing, and I'm starting to basically feel that as well. I've got some max level heroes, and now I see that I'm gonna need to do quite a bit of grinding to do all the necessary unlocks to try and get them better gear before I can really try to tackle harder content in the Darkest Dungeon. So it's a lot of fun, it's super addictive, but understand that there is definitely a grinding aspect to it as well, which I personally didn't expect. I thought it would be like smooth sailing through the whole thing. Nope, there's definitely a curve there, a mountain to climb in the Darkest Dungeon, but it's so it's got its unique atmosphere. There's risk there, and you're always on the edge whenever you start a new dungeon with a team. You want to get them through safely, and sometimes you just can't. The right option would have been to retreat, and if you didn't choose that, then of course then the problems really start. It's a fun game, absolutely having a blast with the Darkest Dungeon, and something that I'm hoping to continue in 2020 as well. That's it for this Sunday recap. Enjoy the holidays and fly safe in 2020.